Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition here on North Country Ham. My name is Aaron, KD2RSS. Today I'm going to do a recording instead of a live show on some more questions from the Amateur Extra Class question pool. So with that, let's get started. Alright, well, as I said today, we're going to go through some more question. It doesn't show up real well in there with the green screen, but Gordon West's Extra Class book, 2020 to 2024 question pool for the Element 4 Amateur Extra license. So we'll go through probably about another 15 questions of what we did. I'm trying to tinker around a little bit. I had some feedback from some other viewers that are really enjoying the question answer sessions and asked me to try to boost the audio a little bit. So I've done that, try to tweak a little bit where I don't get much feedback that I can tell on the recording, so hopefully that helps. It sounds like they do it on their road trips to and from work. They'll listen in almost like a audio book, so we'll see how this works on this one and try to continue to improve quality as we go along. So got some more plans upcoming with some other projects as well. Trying to get into some satellite tracking stuff and some other ham goodies. So with that, let's get into some of the questions. Get this switched over here. Alrighty guys, you can see I'm going right from Gordon West's book, the new edition. It's good to 2024. So we've gone through quite a few of the sections so far, but there's still a lot to go. And I'm just kind of going through the questions and answers and highlighting, and it's helping me study right along. So definitely join in if you want to. Alright, so for the first question today that we'll start off with, what is the bandwidth of a 4800 Hertz frequency shift 9600 baud ASC2 FM transmission? Is it A, 15.36 kilohertz, B, 9.6 kilohertz, C, 4.8 kilohertz, or D, 5.76 kilohertz? Now some of these I'll try and guess at, but with others I may not. This one here I'll just kind of continue on. So in the explanation, digital bandwidth, again, use the formula at question CO6 in this problem. The baud rate is 9600 and the frequency shift is 4800. Bandwidth equals 9600 plus 1.2 times 4800 equals 15360. The answer is 15,360 hertz. And when the decimal point is moved 3 places to the left, the bandwidth works out to be 15.36 kilohertz. Answer is A. So what is the bandwidth of 4800 hertz frequency shift 9600 baud ASC2 FM transmission? Correct answer is A, 15.36 kilohertz. I'm kind of trying to also repeat through because that was also some feedback that I had received, so we will also try to implement that. I appreciate all the feedback that I get from anybody, and I will definitely try to implement or attempt the best I can. So for our next question here, what of the following HF digital modes uses variable length coding for bandwidth efficiency? Is it A, RTTY, B, PACTOR, C, MT63, or D, PSK31? PSK31 stands for phase shift keying with a bit rate slightly over 31. It is a little like Morse code, with more common letters represented by a short count of bits. E is 11, A is 1011, T is 101, or O is 111. While less used characters such as Q and X might contain up to 10 bits, using PSK31, the varicode is transmitted with audio phase shifts which occupy a mere 31 Hz of bandwidth, leading to the bandwidth efficiency. The correct answer is D. So, which of the following HF digital modes uses a variable length coding for bandwidth efficiency? Answer is D, PSK31. All right, next question here. How may data rate be increased without increasing bandwidth? A is it is impossible. B, increasing analog to digital conversion resolution. C, using more efficient digital code. Or D, using forward error correction. Well, with this one, the bandwidth of digital signal of any kind is determined by the number of bits transmitted per second. However, not every alphabet has the same number of bits per character. For example, Bodic code only has 5 bits per character. And while ASC2 code is 8 bits per character for the same information rate, words per minute. The Bodic code can consume considerably less bandwidth than ASC2. However, a number of advanced codes make very efficient use of information theory to increase symbol to the bandwidth ratio. So the correct answer is C. So how may data rate be increased without increasing bandwidth? The answer is C, using a more efficient digital code. And I hope I was saying that right for the Bodic code. Alright, so next question. What technique minimizes the bandwidth of PSK31 signal? Is it A, zero-sum character encoding, B, Reed-Solomon character encoding, C, use of sinusoidal data pulses, or use of trapezoidal data pulses? I think it's A, the zero-sum, but let's see. Any digital mode such as PSK31 that causes a sudden change of frequency phase or amplitude during data transmission will result in the generation of sidebands which increase the occupied bandwidth of the signal, sometimes dramatically. If the transitions between mark and space is made smoothly using sinusoidal data pulses, the bandwidth can be greatly reduced. So it is C. So what technique minimizes a bandwidth of PSK31 signal? Correct answer is C, use of sinusoidal data pulses. Okay, let's see here. So, slide the book a little bit, reposition here. Trying to Boy, the focus is not working very well today at all. Okay, trying to fix this a little bit. All right. Which of these digital modes has the narrowest bandwidth? A, MFSK 16, B, 170 Hz shift 45 baud RTTY, C, PSK 31, or D, 300 baud packet? of those listed, PSK31 has the narrowest bandwidth. Phase shift keying uses sinusoidal data pulses and efficient varicode characters generates a PSK31 signal with very small bandwidth. So which of the digital modes has the narrowest bandwidth? Correct answer is C, PSK31. Alright, next question here. How can APRS station be used to help support a public service communications activity? A, an APRS station with an emergency medical technician can automatically transmit medical data to the nearest hospital. B, APRS stations with general personnel scanners can automatically relay the participant numbers and time as they pass the checkpoints. C, APRS station with global positioning system unit can automatically transmit information to show a mobile station's position during the event. Or D, all of these are correct. I think it's any one of those can actually be correct because you transmit information. Many marathons are supported by ham operators on foot, bicycles, and motorcycles, with an APRS station tied into a GPS unit to automatically transmit position information along the course of the route. All this can be done without the operator needing to do a thing. Simply set the time interval you want your APRS packets transmitted, and presto, everyone with the right equipment can easily see the APRS position information. So it is just the positioning of it that they're referring to here. So how can APRS station be used to help support a public service communications activity? Correct answer was C. An APRS station with global positioning system unit can automatically transmit information to show a mobile station's position during the event. And a good reference point for this was website www.findyou.com, and that's Foxtrot India November Delta Uniform.com. I really do find that doing it this way has helped me retain some of the stuff. So it kind of just shows the emergency communications relay on APRS for both walking as well as those automobiles and base stations. So kind of shows that. So our next question here. What digital protocol is used by APRS? A, PACTOR, B, 802.11, C, AX.25, or D, AMTOR? Alright, the digital packet protocol in use for APRS is AX.25, the ham version of commercial packet networks operating X25. The AX25 protocol is recognized and authorized by the FCC with specific speed limitations depending on the frequency being used. So the correct answer is C. So what digital protocol is used by APRS? Answer is C, AX.25. Okay. Put that there. Alright, so our next question here. What type of packet frame is used to transmit APRS beacon data? Is it A, unnumbered information, B, disconnect, C, acknowledgement, or D, connect? Okay, the packet frames used to transmit APRS beacon data are called UIF, unnumbered information frames. Networking systems can allow an APRS position and short message to be transmitted and relayed throughout the country. Several manufacturers produce handheld and mobile radios with the APRS terminal node controller already built in. The handheld GPS equipment that outputs NEMA data is available under $99. A mapping GPS can show hams call signs and locations. Answer is A. So what type of packet frame is used to transmit APRS beacon data? A, unnumbered information. Alright, next question here. Which of the following data are used by the APRS network to communicate station's location? A. Polar coordinates. B. Time and frequency. C. Radio direction finding spectrum analysis. Or D. Latitude and longitude. It is latitude and longitude in degrees, minutes, and fractions of a minute that are transmitted by your APRS system, usually on the 144.390 megahertz. The data transmitted is usually in the NEMA 0183 format. iGate stations tied into the internet may take your GPS position and have it displayed at, and the website here is http://www.aprs.fi. So the correct answer is D. So which of the following data are used by the APRS network to communicate station location? It is D, latitude and longitude. On what frequencies are spread spectrum transmissions permitted? A. Only on amateur frequencies above 50 megahertz. B. Only on amateur frequencies above 222 megahertz. C. Only on amateur frequencies above 420 megahertz. Or D. Only on amateur frequencies above 144 megahertz. Spread spectrum is relatively new to ham operators and is confined to the 222 megahertz and band and above. Spread spectrum is not allowed on 2 or 6 meters, and while spread spectrum is allowed on frequencies above 420 megahertz, that answer leaves out 220 megahertz band. So the correct answer is B. So on what frequencies are spread spectrum transmissions permitted? Only on amateur frequencies above 222 megahertz. Okay. So next question here. Jumping ahead on myself. How does spread spectrum technique of frequency hopping work? Is it A? If interference is detected by a receiver, it will signal the transmitter to change frequencies. B. If interference is detected by the receiver, it will signal the transmitter to wait till the frequency is clear. C. A binary bit stream is used to shift the phase of the RF carrier very rapidly in a pseudo-random sequence. Or D. The frequency of the transmitted signal is changed very rapidly according to the pseudo-random sequence also used by the receiving station. Frequency hopping depends on particular signaling sequence, and the frequency of the HF carrier is changed so quickly that it almost indistinguishable except to other spread spectrum receivers locked on the same signaling sequence. So the correct answer is D. So how does the spread spectrum technique of frequency hopping work? The frequency of the transmitted signal is changed very rapidly according to the pseudo-random sequence also used by the receiving station. And what a mouthful that was. Okay. What spread spectrum communications technique uses a high-speed binary bit stream to shift the phase of the RF carrier? A. Frequency hopping. B. Direct sequence. C. Binary phase shift keying. Or C. Phase compandored spread spectrum. So, the term direct sequence is used to describe a system where fast binary stream shifts the phase of an RF carrier. This is another spread spectrum communications technique used only a single carrier frequency and then modulating the signal by shifting the phase in accordance with high-speed binary bit stream. Results in a signal whose pattern on a spectrum analyzer spreads out into a pattern of hills and valleys. This is called direct sequence spread spectrum. So the correct answer is B. And it kind of shows it here on your... So what spread spectrum communications technique uses high-speed binary bit stream to shift the phase of an RF carrier? That is B, direct sequence. All right. Why are received spread spectrum signals resistant to interference? A, signals not using the spread spectrum algorithm are suppressed in the receiver. B, the high power used by a spread spectrum transmitter keeps its signal from being easily overpowered. C, the receiver is always equipped with a digital blanker. Or D, the interference is detected by the receiver. It will signal the transmitter to change frequencies. So amateur operators transmitting and receiving spread spectrum signals are pioneering one more way to conserve our valuable frequency resources. Although spread spectrum may utilize the entire band, the hopping technique won't disturb other signals on the band, and all other signals not using the same spread spectrum algorithm are suppressed in the receiver. So just when you thought there was no more room for any more signals on the particular band, spread spectrum gets through. So the correct answer is A. So what are the received spread spectrum signals resistant to interference? A, signals not using the spread spectrum algorithm are suppressed by the receiver. All right. So, which of the following conditions apply when transmitting spread spectrum emissions? A station transmitting SS emission must not cause harmful interference to other stations employing other authorized emissions. B, the transmitting station must be in an area regulated by the FCC or in the country that permits SS emissions. C, the transmission must not be used to obscure the meaning of any communication. Or D, all of these are correct. Spread spectrum communications are allowed to any other station under FCC regulation and to stations in foreign countries that have specifically permitted spread spectrum communications to their country from ours. Spread spectrum may not be used to obscure the meaning of any communication. If these three requirements are met, and as long as you stay at no more than 10 watts, you are entitled to use spread spectrum on 222 megahertz and up. So the correct answer is D. So which of the following conditions apply when transmitting spread spectrum emissions? The correct answer is D. All choices are correct, which are A, station transmitting SS emissions must not cause harmful interference to other stations employing other authorized emissions. B, the transmitting station must be in an area regulated by the FCC or in a country that permits the SS emissions. And C, the transmission must not be used to obscure the meaning of any communication. So long as you follow those, you're all set. All right. So let's go a couple more questions here, and we'll wrap it up for this video. So which of the following frequencies are sometimes used for amateur radio mesh networks? A, HF frequencies where digital communications are permitted. B, frequencies shared with various unlicensed wireless data services. C, cable TV channels 41 through 43. Or D, the 60-meter band channel centered on 5373 kilohertz. A number of amateur UHF and microwave frequencies are shared with commercial broadband services, most of which are unlicensed. Some hams experiment with modifying Wi-Fi routers to work on amateur radio frequencies, merging amateur radio seamlessly with the internet. Answer is B. So, which of the following frequencies are sometimes used for amateur radio mesh networks? The answer is B. Frequencies shared with various unlicensed wireless data services. And I've actually done this. I've taken some old Linksys Cisco routers. You want to make sure you find the correct version of that router that they say is compatible, and you reflash the memory on it, and it turns it into a ham mesh network, and it automatically connects to any other ham mesh network on that same. And my radio club actually uses this during field days. We all have mesh network routers that are reflashed and communicating with each other. They all connect, and it allows us to use our logging software that we all have in our laptops, to where as every one of us enters a contact and such in that way, it shows it and file shares it with everybody else. And it's done over the actual routers themselves, not file sharing means. So it's very quick, and it actually works really well with the we've done it for a few years, and it's worked really well for us. So, and it kind of shows here in the blue box a little bit of a breakdown of the frequencies and stuff. So, all right, last question for the day. What type of equipment is commonly used to implement an amateur radio mesh network? A 2-meter VHF transceiver with 1200 baud modem. B, an elliptical cable connection between the USB ports of two separate computers. C, a wireless router running custom firmware. Or D, a 440 megahertz transceiver with a 9600 baud modem. The commercial frequencies in 3.4 and 5 gigahertz bands actually overlap amateur radio frequencies in those bands. However, hams can use more power than the unlicensed wireless equipment. So you can do a few things the commercial folks can't when it comes to wireless networking. Off-the-shelf wireless routers can easily be configured to accommodate a wide area of ham radio mesh network. Recently, the FCC proposed restructuring the 3.5 gigahertz band, so hams may need to do some router frequency adjustments to those Arden mesh systems currently on the air. Answer is C. So what type of equipment is commonly used to implement an amateur radio mesh network? Correct answer C, a wireless router running custom firmware. And I've actually got a video on the channel of my Linksys router set up to do that. So with that, I appreciate everybody swinging in and watching the video and studying along with me. Definitely, if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the chat below the description, or reach out to me and let me know, and I'll definitely try to see what I can do to improve. I appreciate everybody watching and viewing all the videos I've done so far. So if you're interested and like what I'm doing, definitely consider subscribing to the channel or hitting that like button. It definitely helps me out, and I appreciate all the views so far. So with that, I'll say thanks for watching. 7-3 to everybody, and get on the air.